It's time to talk about the worst comic book of the week. And I must say, Amazing Spider-Man 25 on its own probably isn't the worst thing in the history of the world. But as a culmination of a year long of publishing of Amazing Spider-Man comic books, I couldn't be more pissed off at Marvel Comics at this. And here to talk to me about that is a big-time Spider-Man fan, Doc. How you doing, Doc?
I mean, I guess it could be worse. I don't know how, but I'm pretty sure it could be.
But when they announced this Amazing Spider-Man run by Zeb Wells, there was the big mystery out there. What happened in Pittsburgh or wherever it was? There was a big explosion. There was a big hole in the ground, and everyone hated Peter Parker. Captain America hated him. The Fantastic Four hated him. MJ hated him. All of a sudden, she had a husband and 2 kids. We didn't know where they came from. And this is the issue that really finally explains the Mary Jane portion of it. And there is no hope for Peter Parker and Mary Jane to get back together as long as we're in this iteration of Spider-Man, which I guess could change because everything that was happening in the Nick Spencer Spider-Man run before this has been dropped and forgotten for this Spider-Man run.
They finally bother to tell us how we got from the Nick Spencer Spider-Man run right at the end there where he's, they're about to move back in together and he's probably going to propose to, she's married with 2 kids to some dude that looks like Sean King. So this finally bothers to explain that in the most retcon-y clown world sort of way.
Don't forget the word boring, Doc, because it is quite boring.
Yes. I mean, is there a term for underwhelmed that is just more than standard level underwhelmed? Like, is there like nega-whelmed? I am very far from whelmed. That's what I will tell you.
It's time to get Zeb Wells off this run. It absolutely blows. We would talk about the art. There are 2 artists on this, Carrie Andrews and obviously John Romita Jr. We don't have time for that. Let's just put it this way. They should have found 2 different artists that maybe mixed a little bit. And we start out. MJ is trapped in a parallel dimension. Spider-Man's with her. She sends him back, and she's stuck there with this guy named Paul. And within 3 months, MJ is an absolute girl boss. She's got biceps. She's got forearms. She's got big old fucking shoulders on her. And she carries a rifle like she's been a U.S. Ranger for about 15 years now. It was so goddamn lame. I hated every page as they were running through her becoming the big girl boss. She even slaps the shit out of the guy.
And they turn fucking Paul into, he goes from looking like goddamn Sean King to being jacked as shit, like 6'7", Hulk Hogan's arms from 1987. So what the hell happened to both of these people that they can go from normal to completely jacked and then back into scrawny little shits? It defeats the whole purpose of Mary Jane. She's supposed to be somewhat grounding for Peter and to put him into uncomfortable positions. Like, I can even get behind like movie star, soap opera queen, model MJ that really makes Peter uncomfortable with how public she is in her life persona, and him being, the kind of tag along in her life the same way. And it kind of like juxtaposes against the way that she, as a normal person, is kind of the person tagging along on Peter's side when he's Spider-Man. But this MJ, this doesn't feel anything like any MJ I've ever seen, any MJ I've ever wanted to see. It doesn't even feel like fucking MJ.
And while they're in this parallel dimension, while apparently Spider-Man's trying to get back, it's taking years upon years, and they end up discovering 2 kids, like 6 months into it. The Scribble Man, I don't remember the guy's name, but that's what the kid called him. He's the villain in the book. He's got no personality, and I don't know what he does, but it has something to do with symbols. The Scribble Man was after him, and then Mary Jane, because she's a girl boss now, takes over and then apparently falls in love with Paul, although I don't know why she falls in love with Paul. She just does. It's never actually explained in the script. Apparently, when a man and a woman are next to each other for 5 years straight, they fall in love.
I feel like it really kind of takes away her agency. Apparently, you just stick her next to any cardboard cutout of a man for 4 years, and she's going to fall in love with that cardboard cutout. None of this really makes sense. And I mean, we get to re-explore the absolute worst thing to happen to Captain America, which was Rick Remender's run. So they're going to try to do this exact same bullshit again, but this time with MJ and some cardboard cutout of a guy.
Well, I guess the good news is she didn't sleep with him to get the kids.
I mean, that is like kind of the silver lining here. They've built this world and this situation they can retcon away without needing to do anything. If those kids and Paul were blown off the face of the earth tomorrow, she doesn't become a widow and she doesn't become a mother of dead children.
Well, I think the worst part about that is, Doc, no one will care because no one cares about these kids or Paul. They forgot to flesh that part of the story out to where you actually emotionally are invested in the relationship and what she's doing here. I could care less about any of these scenes.
I mean, wasn't it the last issue where they've literally changed the girl's name because they completely forgot what her name is from the front time they introduced her? Because even the editors don't give a shit enough about these characters to remember their fucking names. Why would they ever expect the readers to? So no, nobody cares about these characters. And the best thing they could possibly do is make them go away.
Let's get to the Scribble Man. This is the big villain. Not really sure where it came from. I don't know what his purpose is. It has something to do with cotton candy and symbols, but this is the most vanilla, boring villain I've ever seen. This villain makes Paul feel like, Constantine or something like that with the nuanced character that he gets.
Yeah, he looks just like a homeless dude with pants, no shoes, no shirt, giant unkempt beard, and long frizzy hair that just happens to know symbols and worship some guy named Wyatt. There's nothing interesting about this. And apparently now all of them can learn there's magic with these symbols in this other universe.
And I think that's how MJ got her superpowers.
I'm betting you're right. That's probably how. I just don't get it.
What was going on with the symbols? Paul was trying to stop him by doing symbols and doing slot machines or something, and cotton candy comes out. I never even understood what they were hinting at with that.
They were trying to make something that would like connect a couple of different those symbols that apparently they're basically like runes, but that have magical powers in this other universe. So if you put the right runes together, it can create things, but they don't understand what the language is. So they're just like, okay, well, we'll just run it like a random number generator where it'll just stick 3 of these together and we don't know what'll happen. The only ones we know what happens are if they get 3 skulls. I think that means the person wielding it dies. But the fact
that there was a worse fate and they accidentally pulled it up.
Yeah, I know. It's a bunch of idiots playing with magic in a universe that they don't understand with magic they don't understand.
The problem is, Doc, the writer wasn't smart enough to spell out the rules even to the villain, to at least as the reader, you know what's going on and maybe what they actually need to do to get out of this. He never established any rules. There's nothing going on. It's all gobbledygook because it means nothing.
You're 100% right. That's the point. It doesn't mean anything. Nothing with anything to do with this universe means anything. The villain doesn't mean anything. The kids that she has don't mean anything. Paul doesn't mean anything. The runes don't mean anything. Nothing here fucking matters. And the writer didn't even give a shit enough to make any aspect of this kind of parallel universe matter enough even to him to bother to figure it out.
He's had 24 issues prior to this. We could have had 2 to 3 pages per issue of MJ talking to her therapist about her time in this other world and explaining the stuff that happened there to where you wouldn't just all be like regurgitating it onto the page to where it just comes off so poorly paced and you just don't care about any of it. You actually have to get the people involved in stuff to make a story like this work.
You're acting here like Zeb Wells even gives a shit about this series. This is whatever he can come up with, and he's like, oh, fuck it. All these people keep demanding to know what the hell Peter did. I'm going to have to come up with something.
It's definitely feeling more like Zeb Wells is more like the guy that wrote the She-Hulk TV show than the Hellions comic series. Let's just put it that way. Now let's get to the Peter MJ stuff. So after Peter shows up and he defeats the Scribble Man, even though MJ has powers now and Paul looks like he's literally Arnold fucking Schwarzenegger with all the muscles he's got, they come back to the Marvel 616. They have a little sit down. Peter talks about, we were in love. We were going to move in together. I was about to ask you to marry me. You said I was a hot mess. And then she says, I'm sorry, Peter. I'm not leaving him because she's never going to be back with Peter Parker again. In my opinion, likely because Marvel would rather him be with Black Cat than with Mary Jane, which makes no sense. And I still don't get what she actually sees in Paul. There's never a moment there where they had an ounce of chemistry together.
I don't know what the hell they're planning to do here. It seems like they're just trying to find an excuse to not make Peter and MJ get back together. It's that simple.
Mary Jane would have waited for Peter, even if Paul was there for the entire 4 years. She would have held faith that Peter was coming because she loves him.
No, it doesn't really make any goddamn sense. There's no point there. Is there a reason for it? There's nothing keeping her with them except for, well, nothing. There's absolutely nothing keeping them together.
Absolutely. And then after that, we do see this confrontation between Peter Parker and the Fantastic Four. While Mary Jane and Paul and these kids were in this other dimension, and it was like for 4 years or whatever, it was only a matter of days, I guess, in the 616. Peter didn't have time to go and consult people. He actually stole some equipment, a reactor of some sort, from the Fantastic Four. I think he stole something from Moon Girl as well, so he could get back to Mary Jane and save her. Yet all of a sudden, they're like, let's throw down. And Peter just starts knocking people out, which doesn't feel like Peter Parker whatsoever.
No, it doesn't. It feels like an impulsive douchebag. It's one thing when he had those only a couple of days to figure out exactly how to save MJ. So he went off the rails and basically said, fuck everybody. But when they finally confront him, the Peter that everybody knows would have been like, look, guys, sorry I had to do all that shit. I was on a time crunch and I couldn't spend the time explaining it all to you. But no, he's just like, nope, this is what I was going to do. So fuck y'all. I'm going to just start throwing down again. What Peter is this?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden Captain America shows up and shames him too. And that didn't feel like Captain either. None of the characters here really felt like themselves. That's why the comic book sucks so bad.
Nobody in any of this entire Zeb Wells arc has felt like themselves. I feel like we're in like Krakoa Spider-Man. Nobody's themselves. Nothing makes sense. And it's all really, really stupid.
Me personally, Doc, I'm not going to recommend this comic book. I didn't think it was very good. As far as a payoff to a year's worth of storytelling in 24 previous issues, I thought it absolutely sucked. I didn't like the art choices. Carrie Andrews is a great artist. John Romita Jr. is a perfectly fine artist on Spider-Man. Them in the same exact issue does not look good whatsoever.
There's way too harsh of a contrast in the art. And honestly, this entire comic, it feels like the ending of the show Lost. They had built all these mysteries. And when you get to the end, you realize the writers never really had a way to write themselves out of this. They didn't know what the hell the end result was. And so they just kind of shoved a bunch of shit in there to sort of make it kind of make sense. And that's where we're at with Spider-Man. The only redeeming part of this comic book is the fact that, hey, MJ doesn't actually have kids. Paul isn't actually her husband. And they can retcon themselves right out of this thing the same way they retcon themselves into it. And
well, the good news is, Doc, they've already told us we're going to hate issue number 26 even more than this one.
Because right at the end of this comic, Alan Moore with runes drawn on him shows up to say that the redhead must die again. I've said for a while, I'm pretty sure they're going to kill MJ to take her completely off the board. So we can't even retcon this stupid shit away. And that's what we're going to get.
What if they subverted expectations? They killed Paul and the kids thinking we would hate that. And I would be like, now we're talking.
Or what they could really do is have Mephisto show up, give MJ an ultimatum where she can give up her family that she doesn't obviously give a shit about, none of us like, in order to save Peter. Then we'll hate it. She's the one that made them deal with Mephisto the first time around, not Peter. So she already made a deal to sacrifice her marriage to save Peter's aunt, but she won't sacrifice her marriage to a cardboard cutout and 2 orphans to save the guy that she's loved for decades.
If you indeed hated this comic book, Marvel Comics got what they wanted. Zeb Wells got what they wanted. In fact, Zeb Wells talked about it, how he was told once issue number 26 comes out, the next one, don't go to comic book conventions because what you've done, people absolutely hate, and we're happy to publish it. If you haven't seen this information or my discussion about it, definitely check this video out right here. There's also a link in the video description.